Imagine remembering something so vividly, so clearly, that you bet money on it being true, only to discover it never happened the way you recall. Welcome to the mind-bending world of the Mandela Effect. It's a strange phenomenon where large groups of people remember the exact same event or detail, incorrectly. And not just a few people here and there, we're talking about millions of individuals sharing the same false memory. The term, Mandela Effect, was coined after countless people around the world insisted they remembered Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s. In reality, he was released in 1990 and later became the president of South Africa. Yet this shared, incorrect memory persists. And it's not just limited to Mandela. It's everywhere, across pop culture, logos, books, movies, and even historical facts. Take the famous children's book series, the Berenstain Bears. Many people remember it as Berenstein Bears, with an E, not an A. They swear they read it that way as kids. But every official copy says, Berenstain. Or consider the iconic line from Star Wars, Luke, I am your father. That line was never actually said. The real quote is, no, I am your father. Still, millions quote the wrong version, and believe it's the original. Another one. The Monopoly Man. In your mind, does he wear a monocle? Sorry, but he doesn't. He never has. These collective memory glitches are strange, even disturbing. How can so many people get the same detail wrong in exactly the same way? It's not just random forgetfulness. It feels coordinated, shared, real. And that's what makes the Mandela Effect so fascinating, and so unnerving. In this video, we're diving deep into what's really going on behind these memory glitches. Is this proof we're living in a simulation? Could this be evidence of alternate realities or a multiverse bleed-through? Or is the answer found in how our brains process, store, and recall information? We're going to break it all down, starting with how the Mandela Effect began, and why certain examples have spread like wildfire online. Then we'll move into the science of memory itself, exploring how the brain sometimes rewrites reality. You'll learn how psychologists study false memories and what the latest neuroscience tells us about why memory can't always be trusted. We'll also explore controversial theories, including the idea that mass misremembering may be linked to quantum events or parallel dimensions. We'll look at experiments, real-life case studies, and expert insights to uncover the truth behind the Mandela Effect. So whether you're here because you vividly remember Pikachu having a black tip on its tail, or you're just curious about why millions of people remember wrong, what you're about to learn might just change how you see your own mind. Get ready to question everything you think you remember. The origin of the Mandela Effect, how a false death sparked a worldwide mystery. The Mandela Effect didn't begin with Pikachu's tail or Monopoly's monocle. It began with a funeral, one that never happened. For many people across the globe, Nelson Mandela died in prison during the 1980s. They remember news reports of riots in South Africa, emotional coverage on international television, and a grand state funeral. Some even recall specific details, like watching his widow give a eulogy or school teachers discussing his death in class. The problem is, none of it ever happened. Nelson Mandela was indeed imprisoned for 27 years, but he was released in 1990. He went on to become South Africa's first black president in 1994 and lived until 2013. When news of his actual death broke, many were confused. To them, Mandela had already died decades earlier. This shared false memory baffled those who experienced it. How could so many people be so sure of something that never occurred? It was this eerie discrepancy that led to the coining of the term Mandela Effect. The phrase was created by Fiona Broome, a paranormal researcher who first described her own false memory of Mandela dying in prison on her website in 2009. She was shocked to discover that she wasn't alone. Thousands of people responded to her post, saying they had the exact same memory. Not only that, they remembered the same details. The funeral. The media coverage. The protests. It felt too specific, too widespread, to be just a case of faulty memory. Fiona Broome began collecting and cataloguing these strange collective misrememberings, and the term Mandela Effect was born. It quickly became more than just a curious idea, it evolved into an entire cultural phenomenon. In the early 2010s, as forums, blogs, and YouTube channels began exploring unexplained mysteries, the Mandela Effect started gaining traction online. It wasn't long before people began pointing out other strange examples. Brand names that had apparently changed. Famous quotes that were suddenly different. Historical facts that no longer matched the public's memory. The rise of social media platforms like Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter only accelerated the phenomenon. A subreddit dedicated to the Mandela Effect was launched in 2013. In just a few years, it exploded in popularity, gaining over 300,000 members. People began submitting new examples daily. The Reddit community continues to grow, with users dissecting new glitches in reality and sharing personal experiences that defy logic. From TV shows to company logos to geography, nothing seemed immune. Google Trends data reflects this surge in curiosity. Searches for Mandela Effect were practically non-existent before 2013. But after that, the interest curve spikes dramatically. The biggest jumps came around viral events, like when popular YouTubers covered the phenomenon or when TikTok creators began posting short videos exposing so-called reality shifts. The term became part of mainstream internet culture, bridging generations and backgrounds. Teens, adults, skeptics, and believers all became invested in uncovering what was really going on. As the Mandela Effect moved from niche forums into everyday conversation, theories started to emerge. Some insisted it was proof that reality was being manipulated or that we had somehow jumped timelines. Others believed it was a symptom of a simulation glitch. More grounded thinkers pointed to flaws in the way human memory works. But no matter the explanation, the shared experience was undeniably powerful. The story of Nelson Mandela's supposed death in prison became the foundation for something much bigger, a worldwide investigation into the fragility of memory and the mystery of collective misperception. What began as a single woman's strange recollection grew into a viral movement, attracting millions of curious minds trying to understand how memory could go so wrong, so collectively, and so convincingly. This origin story is more than just a curiosity. It sets the stage for the deeper question at the heart of the Mandela Effect. If we can't trust our memories about such major events, what else are we getting wrong without even realizing it? In the next part of our journey, we'll explore some of the most famous and shocking examples of the Mandela Effect. You might be surprised to find that you, too, remember something incorrectly. Most famous Mandela Effect examples when the whole world remembers wrong. By now, the term Mandela Effect has become a cultural reference point, and the internet is full of claims from people who insist their memories don't match up with reality. These false memory cases are often so widespread that they defy explanation, and for many, they serve as the most compelling evidence that something deeper is going on, whether that's a brain illusion, a glitch in the matrix, or a collective cognitive bias. Let's begin with perhaps the most iconic Mandela Effect example of all, the Berenstain Bears. For those who grew up reading the classic children's books, the title was always spelled Berenstein, with an E at least. That's what millions of people remember. Yet all existing books, television episodes, and merchandise clearly spell it Berenstain, with an A. This simple vowel change has sparked heated debates, with some convinced that the name changed in a different timeline. What makes this example so eerie is the emotional weight behind it. Childhood memories, often reinforced by repetition, feel deeply ingrained. When they don't match reality, it creates a disorienting experience. Next, consider the Monopoly Man. He's been a fixture of board games and pop culture for over a century. Most people remember him wearing a monocle. In their minds, he is the epitome of an old-school capitalist, complete with a top hat, cane, and that distinct eyepiece. But there's a problem: he never wore a monocle. Not in the original game, not in modern versions, not in any official artwork. This illusion is so persistent that it's even been parodied in movies and cartoons. So why do we all picture him that way? The answer may lie in what psychologists call visual association. People might be conflating his appearance with other characters like Mr. Peanut, who does wear a monocle. The brain often blends similar images together, creating memories that feel real but are completely inaccurate. Perhaps the most famous cinematic false memory comes from Star Wars. Almost everyone can quote the iconic moment when Darth Vader reveals his identity: "Luke, I am your father." But that line doesn't exist. The real dialogue is, "No, I am your father." It's a subtle change, but one that completely rewrites how fans remember one of cinema's most quoted lines. What makes this particular Mandela Effect so powerful is the confidence people have in getting it right. Generations of fans have quoted that line, seen it referenced in countless shows and memes, and even performed it in school plays. When the actual quote is revealed, it challenges the reliability of even our most deeply held pop culture memories. Then there's Pikachu, the beloved mascot from Pokemon. If you're picturing Pikachu in your mind right now, you might be visualizing a small yellow creature with black-tipped ears and a lightning-shaped tail. But here's where it gets strange. Many people insist Pikachu used to have a black tip on the end of his tail. In reality, he never did. Official artwork, merchandise, and game visuals all show Pikachu with a completely yellow tail. This example taps into another quirk of memory, filling in details based on expectation. The ears have black tips, so the tail should match. That's how the brain creates a logical but incorrect version of the image, and once that false picture is stored, it becomes hard to shake. Another popular Mandela Effect example is the Fruit of the Loom logo. For decades, people remember it as featuring a cornucopia behind the fruit. It was such a prominent part of the design that many can still describe it vividly. Yet, in reality, no official version of the logo ever had a cornucopia. It's just a pile of fruit. This memory glitch is particularly compelling because it doesn't come from a misheard quote or a misspelled word, it's a visual memory. People remember seeing the horn-shaped basket and can even sketch it from memory. But they're all wrong. These aren't isolated incidents. A survey conducted in 2020 showed that nearly 77% of respondents remembered the Monopoly man with a monocle. Over 60% recalled Berenstain Bears instead of Berenstain. And almost 80% said they remembered Darth Vader saying, "Luke, I am your father." These are staggering numbers that point to widespread false memory cases that go far beyond normal forgetfulness. So what's really going on? Part of the answer lies in how the human brain processes information. Memory isn't a perfect recording, it's a reconstruction. Every time we recall something, we're not playing back a video, we're rebuilding the scene from scattered fragments. Over time, these reconstructions become more vulnerable to distortion. If we're repeatedly exposed to incorrect information, through memes, jokes, or cultural repetition, our brains may integrate that version into our own memory banks. That's why so many of these Mandela Effect examples feel so real. They're supported by years of reinforcement, even if the details are completely off. What makes these brain illusions even more interesting is how emotional they can be. People aren't just surprised to be wrong, they're shaken by it. The Mandela Effect challenges the very foundation of what we believe to be true. If we can't trust our own memories, what else might we be getting wrong? As we continue this journey, it becomes clear that these examples aren't just fun internet trivia, they're windows into the inner workings of the human mind. They show us how easy it is to misremember, how quickly false information spreads, and how fragile our perception of reality really is. Next, we'll look at the psychology behind these memory glitches. How does the brain create such convincing illusions? Why do some people experience false memories more often than others? And is there a way to tell when your memory is playing tricks on you? Get ready to explore the science of forgetting, and the even stranger science of remembering something that never happened. The psychology of memory, how the brain rewrites reality without you noticing. To truly understand the Mandela effect, we need to first understand how memory works. Not just how we remember facts or events, but how the brain constructs, edits, and sometimes even invents memories without our conscious awareness. Memory isn't a flawless playback system. It's not like watching a video stored neatly in your head. Instead, memory is a dynamic, ever-changing process. It's influenced by what we expect to see, what others tell us, and how we feel at any given moment. The brain encodes memory in three key stages: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the process of taking in information through the senses. It's what happens when you read a sentence, watch a movie, or hear a conversation. This raw data is then stored in different areas of the brain, particularly the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. Over time, through repetition and emotional association, some of that data gets consolidated into long-term memory. Finally, retrieval is the act of recalling that stored information when you need it. But here's where the glitches begin. Every time you retrieve a memory, you're not just pulling it from storage. You're reconstructing it. You rebuild the memory using bits and pieces of the original event, combined with your expectations, biases, and new experiences. And just like reconstructing a puzzle, sometimes you put the pieces together wrong. This is where the Mandela effect becomes more than a curiosity. It becomes a case study in how memory is often more imaginative than factual. Psychologists describe this as the reconstructive nature of memory. You don't remember everything, only key fragments. Your brain fills in the blanks with what seems logical or familiar. This process is guided by mental frameworks called schemas. A schema is like a mental shortcut, a way of organizing information based on past experiences. For example, you have a schema for what a fast food restaurant looks like, or how a birthday party usually unfolds. When you recall an event, you don't rebuild every detail. You let the schema fill in the gaps. But if your schema is based on an incorrect belief, or if society reinforces the wrong version, it can lead to a convincing but false memory. One of the most powerful contributors to false memories is suggestibility. This refers to how easily memory can be altered by outside influences. A simple comment like, "Do you remember the cornucopia on the Fruit of the Loom logo?" can be enough to plant a completely false visual in someone's mind. Once that image takes hold, it becomes integrated with existing memories, making it feel as real as something you've actually seen. This isn't just a theory, it's been proven time and time again in psychological experiments. Elizabeth Loftus, one of the most influential figures in the study of memory, conducted groundbreaking research on this topic. Her work on the misinformation effect revealed just how malleable human memory can be. In one study, participants watched a video of a car crash. Later, they were asked questions about what they had seen. When researchers subtly altered the wording of their questions, for example, by saying, "How fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other?" versus, "How fast were they going when they hit each other?" the responses changed dramatically. People who heard the word "smashed" reported higher speeds and even remembered seeing broken glass that wasn't there. In another experiment, Loftus was able to implant entirely false memories in participants' minds. She asked him to recall getting lost in a shopping mall as a child, an event that had never happened. Remarkably, many of the participants not only believed the false event had occurred, but they also provided rich, detailed descriptions of it. They described how they felt, what the store looked like, and even who helped them. This is the essence of memory confabulation, the brain's tendency to fill in missing information with fabricated but believable content. Eyewitness testimony has also served as a crucial area of study for false memory research. In numerous court cases, eyewitnesses have identified suspects with absolute certainty, only to be proven wrong by DNA evidence years later. These weren't cases of lying or confusion. They were cases of brain glitches, memories that felt completely real but were entirely false. A single misremembered face, a leading question from a police officer, or exposure to mugshots can shift someone's memory of a crime they witnessed. According to the Innocence Project, eyewitness misidentification has contributed to nearly 70% of wrongful convictions. What makes false memories so powerful is that they don't feel false. People aren't guessing or unsure. They're confident. They can describe details, recall emotions, and argue passionately that they remember something a certain way. This confidence is part of the illusion. Our brains interpret detail and emotion as signs of truth, but both can be entirely fabricated. When memory retrieval includes even a few vivid sensory details, the entire event becomes anchored as real in the mind. This explains why so many Mandela Effect examples are tied to strong emotions or repeated exposure. If you watched the Berenstain Bears as a child, and your friends always said, Berenstein, your schema adapted to that pronunciation. You likely never questioned the spelling. Over the years, that version of the name became locked into your memory. So when you're told that it was never spelled that way, your brain experiences a moment of cognitive dissonance. The data in front of you contradicts the data stored in your mind. And your brain hates that contradiction. This clash between expectation and reality is a hallmark of cognitive illusions. It's the same mechanism that causes people to see patterns that aren't there, hear their name in background noise, or feel like they've been somewhere before. The brain is constantly interpreting, filtering, and reshaping sensory data to make it feel coherent. But that coherence often comes at the cost of accuracy. So when people claim they remember it clearly, they probably do. But clarity doesn't equal correctness. Memory, like perception, is not about precision. It's about meaning, connection, and survival. The brain's primary goal is to create a usable version of reality, not necessarily the most accurate one. In the case of the Mandela Effect, what we're seeing is a perfect storm of memory reconstruction, schema influence, social reinforcement, and emotional conviction. The result is a set of vivid, detailed, and shared false memories that feel too real to ignore. As we move deeper into this mystery, we'll go beyond psychology and step into the realm of collective experience. How is it that entire groups of people can share the same memory errors? Is it all just coincidence, or is something else at work? In the next section, we'll explore the science of mass misremembering and how collective memory can be just as flawed, and fascinating as individual recollection. Mass misremembering when the crowd gets it wrong. If one person misremembers a detail, it's easy to explain it as forgetfulness or a personal slip. But when thousands or even millions of people share the same incorrect memory, it becomes something much stranger. The Mandela Effect psychology isn't just about individual brain glitches. It reveals how easily collective false memory can spread and take hold in entire populations. The human brain is a social organ. We don't just process the world individually, we process it collectively. From early childhood, we rely on others to help shape our understanding of reality. Our parents tell us what things are called. Teachers explain how history unfolded. Friends share stories, reinforce ideas, and help us construct a shared reality. But that shared reality is vulnerable to distortion. When a group starts to remember something a certain way, the individual is often swept up in that same version, even if it isn't true. One of the key drivers behind group memory glitches is media repetition. The more often we hear or see something, even if it's wrong, the more likely we are to believe it. This is known as the illusory truth effect. Repetition gives the appearance of truth. So when memes, videos, or conversations consistently portray a particular version of a memory, our brains start to accept that version as fact. That's why so many Mandela Effect examples originate in pop culture. Popular movies, TV shows, commercials, and viral internet content repeat the same phrases and images over and over, sometimes inaccurately. Eventually, those inaccuracies become embedded in our collective consciousness. The role of confirmation bias can't be overstated here. Once people start believing in a particular memory, they tend to seek out information that confirms it while ignoring or dismissing anything that contradicts it. If someone believes the Monopoly man had a monocle, they're more likely to notice fan art or memes that show him wearing one and disregard official sources that prove otherwise. Social media makes this even more intense, creating echo chambers where collective false memories can spread unchecked. Another factor is the idea of collective schema. Just as individuals have schemas, mental frameworks that help them interpret the world, groups also develop shared schemas. These collective understandings form the backdrop of how we remember events together. For example, most people in the United States have a general schema for national tragedies like the September 11th attacks. They remember watching the news, seeing the Twin Towers collapse, and hearing specific reports. But studies show that many of these memories are inaccurate or exaggerated. One striking example comes from the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster in 1986. Within 24 hours of the explosion, researchers asked college students to write down exactly where they were, who they were with, and what they were doing when they heard the news. Several years later, those same students were asked to recall the event again. More than half of them gave completely different accounts. Some remembered being in places they never were. Others described emotional reactions they didn't originally report. Even when shown their original responses, many insisted their newer memories were more accurate. This phenomenon is a textbook example of collective false memory in action. The same thing happened with recollections of 9/11. Many people remember seeing the first plane hit the North Tower live on television. But that's impossible. The footage of the first impact wasn't released until the next day. Yet countless individuals vividly recall watching it live. Why? Because the constant replaying of that footage, combined with the emotional shock of the day, created a sense of immediate experience. The brain inserted that moment into the timeline as if it had always been there. And because everyone around them seemed to remember the same thing, it reinforced the illusion. Psychologists have studied these collective glitches through controlled experiments, and the findings are just as unsettling. One of the most famous tools for studying false memories is the Diess-Roediger-McDermott paradigm, or DRM for short. In this experiment, participants are given a list of related words to remember, like bed, pillow, dream, and tired. Later, when asked to recall the list, many participants mistakenly include the word sleep, even though it was never mentioned. The brain naturally fills in the most obvious connecting word based on the theme. What's most fascinating is that people report high confidence in their false recall, genuinely believing they saw the word on the list. False memory implantation experiments take this even further. In some studies, researchers have successfully convinced participants that they met Bugs Bunny at Disneyland, a completely impossible scenario, since Bugs Bunny is a Warner Bros. Character and not part of the Disney franchise. By showing doctored photos or planting suggestive language, researchers were able to insert a vivid, completely fabricated event into the participants' memory bank. When asked later, many could describe the meeting in detail, including what Bugs Bunny looked like and what he said. Again, the memory felt real because it followed a familiar and emotionally charged narrative. These findings offer critical insights into the Mandela Effect. When we encounter information that fits our expectations, emotions, and group beliefs, we're more likely to accept it as truth, even if it's completely wrong. The power of collective memory is not in its accuracy, but in its ability to bind people together around a shared version of events. Once a false detail becomes part of the collective schema, it spreads like wildfire, especially in the age of social media and instant communication. But what's perhaps most unnerving is that people experiencing these group memory glitches are not hallucinating. They're not delusional. Their brains are working exactly as they were designed to work, reconstructing memories based on available cues, emotional intensity, and social reinforcement. The very mechanisms that help us function in a complex world are the same ones that make us vulnerable to the Mandela Effect. This realization blurs the line between reality and perception. If memory is this malleable, and if group memory is this easily distorted, then our shared understanding of the past is less stable than we like to believe. In a world where millions can misremember the same thing, the idea of an objective, collective reality starts to feel more like a comforting illusion than a fixed truth. Up next, we'll go even deeper into the actual structure of the brain. What does neuroscience tell us about where these false memories are stored? Which areas of the brain light up when we remember something that never happened? And can brain scans reveal the moment our mind starts to rewrite reality? Let's explore the biology behind the glitch. Neuroscience behind memory glitches: how the brain creates false reality. To understand why the Mandela effect feels so real, even when it's undeniably false, we have to move beyond psychology and step into the realm of neuroscience. The brain is not simply a storage unit where memories sit untouched. It is a highly dynamic, interconnected organ that reconstructs memory from multiple regions and systems. Every time you recall a moment, your brain is lighting up with electrical signals and chemical reactions. But what happens when that reconstruction goes wrong? What causes a memory glitch to occur in the first place? At the center of this discussion is the hippocampus. This small, seahorse-shaped structure located deep within the brain plays a major role in forming, organizing, and retrieving memories. It acts as a sort of indexing system, helping you connect different elements of a memory, what you saw, heard, felt, and thought, into a single, cohesive episode. But the hippocampus doesn't work alone. The prefrontal cortex, located behind your forehead, helps evaluate the accuracy of memories, organize them chronologically, and control attention during recall. Together, these regions build the foundation of your memory system. But this system isn't perfect. One of the most fascinating findings in the neuroscience of memory is that the same brain areas involved in recalling real events are also active when you remember something that didn't happen. Functional MRI scans have shown that when people recall false memories, their hippocampus lights up in a very similar pattern to when they remember actual events. The prefrontal cortex also becomes active, trying to make sense of the information. But when there's confusion, interference, or missing details, the brain can mistakenly label fiction as fact. Several studies have revealed just how susceptible the brain is to these kinds of errors. In one study conducted at the University of California, researchers found that participants could be manipulated into recalling images they had never seen, simply through verbal suggestion. Brain scans showed that the regions responsible for visual processing activated in response to imagined images, creating a memory trace nearly indistinguishable from a real one. These findings reveal just how fragile memory encoding and retrieval can be, especially when external cues interfere with what the brain believes is real. Dopamine, the brain's reward chemical, also plays a key role in memory formation. When something feels emotionally significant, the brain releases dopamine, strengthening the encoding process. But if that emotional response is tied to false information, or if a vivid but incorrect detail triggers a dopamine release, the brain may mistakenly lock in a flawed version of the event. This is why emotionally intense experiences are often misremembered with high confidence. The brain doesn't just store the event, it amplifies it, adding weight and certainty that might not reflect the truth. Stress is another powerful influence on memory accuracy. Under pressure, the brain prioritizes survival, sometimes at the expense of precision. High-stress situations flood the body with cortisol, which can disrupt the normal function of the hippocampus. This leads to fragmented or distorted memories. Eyewitnesses in high-stress scenarios, for example, often misidentify suspects or mix up critical details, not because they weren't paying attention, but because the brain was overwhelmed. These brain memory errors are especially dangerous in real-world settings, such as courtrooms or trauma recovery. Sleep, too, plays a critical role in memory consolidation. During deep sleep, the brain replays and strengthens important memories while pruning away the unnecessary ones. But if sleep is disrupted or insufficient, that consolidation process becomes unreliable. Studies have shown that people who are sleep-deprived are more likely to recall false memories than those who are well-rested. Sleep deprivation impairs the prefrontal cortex's ability to critically evaluate information, increasing the chance that imagined or suggested content is integrated into memory as fact. One of the most compelling case studies in this area is the famous "Lost in the Mall" experiment. Psychologist Elizabeth Loftus and her colleagues conducted a study in which participants were asked to recall several events from their childhood, 3 of which were real and 1 that was completely fabricated. The false event involved getting lost in a shopping mall as a child and being rescued by a stranger. Despite being told that the event came from family members, it had been entirely invented by the researchers. Remarkably, about a quarter of the participants not only accepted the false memory as real, but they added emotional and sensory details. Some remembered crying, others described the stranger's appearance, and a few even identified the layout of the mall. What's astonishing is that their brains were working exactly as designed. The hippocampus assembled fragments of unrelated memories, perhaps a time they had been frightened or lost briefly, and constructed a plausible story. The prefrontal cortex, instead of rejecting the memory due to lack of evidence, rationalized it. And the emotional centers of the brain filled in the blanks, making the memory feel real. This is the neuroscience of memory in action, and it shows how memory glitches can occur in even the most logical and self-aware individuals. In more advanced neuroimaging studies, researchers have identified patterns that distinguish true from false memories, but only with fine-tuned analysis. The parietal lobes, which help process sensory data and context, tend to be more active when real memories are recalled. False memories, on the other hand, show more uniform activation in areas associated with imagination and visual reconstruction. Still, the differences are subtle, and without specific markers, even trained scientists can have trouble telling them apart on a brain scan. This leads to a deeper question. If your brain treats a false memory almost identically to a true one, how can you ever be sure that what you remember really happened? And if large groups of people share the same neural processes, could they also share the same false memories without realizing it? The neuroscience behind the Mandela Effect offers a compelling, grounded explanation for how group memory glitches occur. While theories about alternate realities and quantum jumps are fascinating, the more scientifically accepted view is that memory is vulnerable to distortion because the brain is designed to prioritize meaning over accuracy. It cares more about creating a coherent story than preserving exact facts. This makes us prone to believing things that never happened, and feeling absolutely certain about them. In the context of the Mandela Effect, what we see is the perfect convergence of emotional significance, repeated misinformation, cognitive shortcuts, and neurochemical reinforcement. The result is a vivid, unquestioned memory that bypasses skepticism and lodges itself in the mental landscape as truth. The more it gets repeated, by others, online, or in our own thoughts, the stronger it becomes. As we peel back the layers of science and psychology, the Mandela effect starts to look less like a mystery of the universe and more like a window into how the brain constructs reality. But not everyone is satisfied with this explanation. Some believe there's more to it than faulty neurons and memory drift. They point to quantum mechanics, alternate timelines, and glitches in the very nature of reality. In the next section, we'll explore these more controversial theories. Could the Mandela effect be evidence of parallel worlds, time shifts, or even simulated realities? Let's examine the possibilities, and the science behind them. Quantum theories and parallel realities. Is the Mandela effect evidence of a multiverse? While neuroscience and psychology offer grounded explanations for the Mandela effect, not everyone finds them satisfying. For some, the idea that our brains simply make mistakes doesn't capture the strange emotional intensity of these memory glitches. There's a deeper question that lingers in the background. What if these aren't just internal errors, but glimpses into something larger? Something beyond our current understanding of space, time, and reality itself. This is where quantum theories and alternate dimensions enter the conversation. The idea of a parallel reality memory is both thrilling and unsettling. It suggests that perhaps we aren't misremembering at all. Instead, we may have once existed in a slightly different version of reality, where Nelson Mandela did die in prison, where the Berenstain Bears were spelled with an E, and where Darth Vader really did say, "Luke, I am your father." According to this theory, we've somehow shifted into another timeline, a neighboring version of reality where the details are just a little bit different. This concept is often linked to the multiverse theory in quantum physics. In simple terms, the multiverse theory proposes that every possible outcome to every possible event exists in its own separate universe. Right now, there could be infinite versions of you living out infinite lives, each shaped by different choices, different events, and slightly different histories. In this framework, the Mandela effect isn't a glitch. It's a memory from one of those other timelines. Quantum decoherence is a real and widely accepted concept in physics, and it explains how quantum systems collapse into a single observable state. When applied to reality on a grander scale, some have theorized that every time a quantum decision point is reached, reality splits. One version continues with one outcome, and another universe is born to contain the alternate path. It's a radical interpretation, but some believe it supports the idea that consciousness could shift between timelines. In this view, remembering something that never happened could be the result of having once existed in a timeline where it did happen. Physicist Michio Kaku has often spoken about the multiverse theory and how quantum mechanics opens the door to dimensions beyond our own. While he doesn't directly support the Mandela effect quantum theory, he acknowledges that the universe is far more complex than our senses can detect. Other physicists, like Sean Carroll, have explored the concept of parallel realities from a scientific angle, suggesting that what we perceive as reality may only be a fraction of what truly exists. Although most mainstream scientists reject the Mandela effect as evidence of these ideas, they agree that the mysteries of consciousness and quantum mechanics leave a lot of room for exploration. The simulation hypothesis is another fringe theory that often surfaces in Mandela effect discussions. It proposes that our entire universe might be a simulated environment created by a highly advanced intelligence, perhaps even ourselves from the future. In this theory, the Mandela effect is viewed as a side effect of code updates or system changes. When something in the simulation is altered or patched, a few remnants of the previous version remain in our memory. It's a digital glitch interpreted as a mental one. This theory gained popularity in part due to the work of philosopher Nick Bostrom and the endorsement of figures like Elon Musk, who famously stated that the odds we are living in base reality are 1 in billions. Of course, these explanations are highly speculative. Most scientists emphasize that while the multiverse is a serious topic in theoretical physics, there is currently no empirical evidence to support the idea that we can shift between timelines or that the Mandela effect is caused by reality fractures. Brain science still provides the most testable, repeatable, and evidence-based explanations. Yet, the persistence of these theories points to something deeper in human nature. People want to believe in alternate dimensions because it gives meaning to the unexplainable. It offers a sense of mystery and wonder in a world that often feels overly rational. It also allows us to hold on to our memories without admitting they might be flawed. If a memory feels vivid and emotionally charged, the idea that it's from another version of reality is sometimes easier to accept than the possibility that our own minds betrayed us. This desire for a larger explanation isn't irrational. Throughout history, humanity has filled the gaps in understanding with mythology, religion, or speculative science. The Mandela effect sits at the intersection of all three. It has the personal impact of a spiritual experience, the cultural reach of a myth, and the scientific intrigue of a quantum puzzle. Whether or not you believe in alternate dimensions, simulation theory, or quantum consciousness, exploring these possibilities forces us to confront what we take for granted about reality. It also makes us question how much of our experience is shaped by perception rather than fact. Could we all be living in slightly different versions of the same world? Or are these theories just elaborate stories that help us cope with the fragile nature of memory? In the next section, we'll shift focus to something more grounded, the role of social media in spreading these shared memory glitches. Because whether they stem from the mind or the multiverse, there's no doubt that the internet plays a major role in how the Mandela effect continues to evolve and expand. Social media's role in spreading memory glitches. How the internet turned false memories into a viral movement. If the Mandela effect existed before the age of the internet, it likely would have remained a strange but obscure phenomenon, a quiet curiosity shared among a few friends or family members. But with the rise of platforms like Reddit, YouTube, and especially TikTok, false memories have found fertile ground to flourish and evolve into a global digital phenomenon. Social media hasn't just helped people discover the Mandela effect. It has actively shaped it, amplified it, and embedded it deeper into modern culture. One of the earliest online spaces to host Mandela Effect discussions was Reddit. The Mandela Effect subreddit quickly grew into a massive community, now with hundreds of thousands of members sharing personal experiences, theories, and new discoveries. It became a digital archive of brain glitches, where people from around the world could validate each other's false memories in real time. If one person remembered a movie quote differently, chances were high that others did too. This instant confirmation fed the belief that the memory was valid, and it turned individual confusion into collective certainty. YouTube followed suit, becoming a hotspot for long-form content that explored the Mandela effect from both scientific and speculative perspectives. Creators began uploading breakdowns of popular examples, often combining dramatic visuals with eerie music and bold titles that questioned reality itself. These videos didn't just inform, they entertained, pulled viewers down rabbit holes, and encouraged comments filled with personal accounts. The Mandela effect became a shared experience, one that spread from screen to screen, country to country, with each video reinforcing the sense that something larger was at play. But it was TikTok that truly supercharged the Mandela effect's reach. With its fast-paced, bite-sized format and algorithm that rewards watch time and engagement, TikTok became a breeding ground for viral false memories. A user might post a short clip about the Berenstain Bears spelling or the Fruit of the Loom logo, and within hours, millions of others were watching, liking, and commenting with their own recollections. The Mandela Effect TikTok trend exploded, with creators dramatizing their shock and disbelief, often showing side-by-side comparisons and asking viewers, "Which one do you remember?" This type of content works because it plays directly into the brain's natural reaction to cognitive dissonance. When viewers are presented with a memory they believe to be true, and are suddenly told it's false, the immediate response is emotional. Confusion, curiosity, and even defensiveness kick in. TikTok's format captures that emotional moment and delivers it to others, sparking a cascade of shared reactions. The result is a viral loop of cognitive illusions, where each video not only spreads misinformation but strengthens belief in it. Memes have played a surprisingly powerful role in this process. By simplifying complex or controversial ideas into a single image or sentence, memes become easily digestible forms of repetition. And repetition, as psychologists know, is key to making something feel true. When a meme is seen multiple times across different platforms, the brain begins to accept it, even if it's factually incorrect. That's why so many Mandela Effect examples feel familiar to people who've never even encountered the original source. The meme acts as a memory seed, planting an idea that later feels like personal recall. This is where the feedback loop begins. A creator posts a Mandela Effect example. Viewers validate it in the comments. Others stitch or remix the post, adding their own disbelief or support. More viewers see the content and believe it confirms their own experiences. The illusion becomes stronger, not because of new evidence, but because of social reinforcement. In digital terms, this is known as the engagement algorithm feeding belief. The more a piece of content resonates with people, the more platforms push it out to wider audiences. And with each cycle, the line between fact and fiction blurs further. What makes this loop even more compelling is that it doesn't require any malicious intent. Most creators aren't trying to deceive. They genuinely believe what they remember, and the platforms they use reward that belief with reach, visibility, and influence. The viral nature of the Mandela Effect isn't a conspiracy, it's a natural byproduct of how humans share stories and how algorithms amplify emotional content. The Mandela Effect Reddit threads, YouTube deep dives, and TikTok reenactments all tap into the same core idea. That memory can't be trusted, and that maybe, just maybe, we're all part of something bigger than ourselves. But what these platforms truly reveal is how susceptible our memories are to social influence. What starts as a glitch in the brain becomes a viral false memory when echoed across millions of screens. In the next section, we'll bring this conversation back to the real world. Beyond memes and internet theories, memory glitches have serious consequences. False memories can land innocent people in prison, distort public perception of major events, and even shape how history is written. So what happens when our collective memory errors move beyond the screen and into real life? When memory errors become matters of justice. Up to this point, the Mandela Effect might seem like an entertaining mental puzzle, a quirk of the brain, amplified by the internet, and surrounded by cosmic theories. But in the real world, false memories can have devastating consequences. While the idea of misremembering the color of Pikachu's tail or a logo design might be harmless, memory manipulation in legal and therapeutic settings can change lives forever. These errors aren't just psychological curiosities. They are legal landmines, and they've shaped courtrooms, verdicts, and even national debates. One of the most well-documented consequences of memory errors occurs in eyewitness testimony. In legal cases around the world, victims and witnesses are often asked to recall the details of a crime, what they saw, who was there, what the perpetrator looked like. These recollections carry enormous weight in the justice system. But studies show that memory, especially in high-stress situations, is alarmingly unreliable. The Innocence Project, an organization dedicated to exonerating wrongly convicted individuals through DNA testing, reports that more than 65% of wrongful convictions later overturned were caused in part by mistaken eyewitness identification. These are not isolated mistakes. They are system-wide failures built on the assumption that confident memory equals accurate memory. But as we've already explored through the psychology and neuroscience of the Mandela Effect, the brain does not store experiences like a video camera. It reconstructs them, reshapes them, and sometimes adds new elements without our knowledge. When police lineups are conducted poorly or when officers unintentionally suggest certain suspects, a witness's memory can shift to match the implied narrative. The memory becomes not what actually happened, but what the mind believes should have happened. Even more troubling are the cases of false confessions. Under pressure, people have admitted to crimes they did not commit, often providing details that matched crime scene evidence. These confessions baffle investigators and jurors alike. Why would anyone confess to something they didn't do? The answer lies in memory manipulation through suggestion, fatigue, stress, and psychological coercion. In some documented instances, interrogators repeatedly told suspects that there was overwhelming evidence against them. Over time, some individuals began to believe that they had blacked out, repressed the memory, or simply forgotten committing the act. This leads us to another area where memory can be altered: therapy. During the 1980s and 1990s, there was a surge in the use of memory recovery techniques designed to help patients uncover repressed memories of childhood trauma. While many therapists acted with good intentions, others used suggestive techniques that led patients to develop vivid but false memories of events that never occurred. Families were torn apart, reputations destroyed, and lives permanently altered, all based on memories that were later proven to be false or unsupported by evidence. These cases ignited a national debate over the reliability of memory and the ethics of therapeutic suggestion. The psychological community responded with a wave of research. Peer-reviewed journals published studies confirming that it is indeed possible to implant false memories in people, especially when authority figures guide the process. In controlled experiments, participants remembered entire fictional experiences with convincing detail, simply because they were told that close relatives had confirmed the events. These findings echo many of the same mechanisms behind the Mandela Effect: schema filling, emotional reinforcement, and social validation, but in far more consequential environments. These false memory legal cases reveal a sobering truth. The same cognitive quirks that make the Mandela Effect fascinating online can become catastrophic offline. In the courtroom, a brain glitch can mean the difference between guilt and innocence. In therapy, a false narrative can replace a lifetime of real experiences. This is the Mandela Effect in real life, not as an internet trend, but as a force with real psychological, emotional, and societal impact. As we move toward the conclusion of this journey, it's worth stepping back and asking what all of this means. What can we learn about ourselves from these glitches in memory? How can we protect our minds from manipulation? And what does this all say about the fragile line between what's real and what we believe to be real? In the final section, we'll reflect on what the Mandela Effect teaches us about the human brain, our trust in our own thoughts, and the strange, sometimes terrifying beauty of not remembering quite as well as we think we do. What the Mandela Effect teaches us about the brain. The Mandela Effect isn't just a cultural curiosity, it's a profound lesson about the limits of human memory. For all our intelligence and technological advancement, the truth is that our brains are built more for storytelling than for storing perfect records. What the Mandela Effect meaning ultimately reveals is that memory is not about precision. It's about coherence. The brain values making sense over being right. This doesn't mean the brain is broken. It means it's efficient. We live in a chaotic world filled with endless sensory input. Our brains need to sort, simplify, and interpret that information quickly. In doing so, they sometimes fill in gaps, rewrite details, or absorb suggestions from others. These brain shortcuts usually serve us well. But occasionally, they lead to spectacular memory glitches. That's why being wrong doesn't mean something is wrong with you. Experiencing a false memory doesn't make you gullible or flawed, it makes you human. The same brain mechanisms that allow you to learn, adapt, and imagine also make you vulnerable to distortion. This is the central takeaway of memory science. The same mind that can invent great ideas can also invent memories. But what makes this subject even more fascinating is how much we still don't understand. Despite decades of research, scientists are only beginning to uncover the full complexity of memory formation and retrieval. We still don't fully grasp why some false memories feel so real, or why certain people are more susceptible to them than others. We can scan the brain, map its activity, and analyze its structure, but the subjective experience of memory remains partly mysterious. That's why the Mandela Effect invites not just analysis, but curiosity. It urges us to examine our memories with humility, to ask ourselves whether what we recall is fact or interpretation. It challenges us to remain skeptical not only of external sources, but of our own certainty. And in doing so, it opens the door to deeper self-awareness. The next time you feel absolutely sure of something, pause for a moment. Ask yourself why. Consider the possibility that your brain, in its attempt to help you, may have quietly altered the script. Because in the theater of memory, we are all unreliable narrators. If you found this video thought-provoking, insightful, or just plain mind-bending, make sure to like it, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a deep dive into the unexpected. This helps the video reach more curious minds like yours and supports us in creating more content that challenges the way we see the world.